Just a quick video rather than send you a lengthy email that you have to read on. We're sending out a job form. We're sending out a form to all the owners for them to respond to let us know if they're interested in us having a company go out and do some weed killing. So I'm probably fixated on weed killing more than any other investor I've ever come across. I think one time I had a friend who was a contractor who did some work for us, and he was actually in a duplex that my wife and I own, and took me to the window and he's like, "Joe, what do you see?" And I'm like, I don't know what do I see? And he's like, "Well, what do you see?" And I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, what do you want me to see? And he's like, "Weeds." And as soon as he said that, I instantly saw the entire neighborhood for how it is. And it's not the nicest neighborhood here in Philadelphia. We like it. We love having this duplex that we own there. And the neighborhood certainly has changed. But, I'm looking and I'm just seeing like one of the number one factors that made this into a less desirable neighborhood to be in was everywhere you could see there was weeds, just overgrown everywhere. It was just the whole block was in a state of neglect. Now, I understand your property might not actually be in a similar situation as that, but I will tell you that all the rental properties that my wife and I own, so of all the properties that Grow Property Management manages, the most profitable properties, the ones that I see that rent for the most, and I understand how this sounds, are the ones that my wife and I own. Now, that's not a shock to you to hear that the owner of Grow Property Management is getting the very best service that Grow Property Management has to offer. No, I can tell you that my staff, as far as I know, they do not know what properties my wife and I own. So Grow Property Management is managing our properties concurrently with all other properties. The vendors, the contractors that we recommend to go into the properties, to the best of my knowledge, they do not know that I own those properties. So why are the properties that my wife and I manage doing so much better, in my opinion, than my typical clients' properties? And obviously I have an invested interest because I have a responsibility to my owners to move them forward, to increase their investments as much as possible. The one difference is when our properties are vacant, I am going in, my wife and I are going in, and we're applying the knowledge and the experience I have to put into a rental property, to translate that into to a greater return. We're doing the things that owners don't tend to do. And with our rental properties, I go through my neighborhood and I do weed killing. The neighbors appreciate it, and it just makes a huge difference. It's one of the things I actually see as being the greatest benefit for cost. It costs so little to go in and do weed killing, and it has a high impact. It has a high impact on the rentability of your property. It increases your equity, increases your neighbor's equity, which increases your equity. Increases your neighbor's equity, and so they're getting higher quality tenants. You're seeing higher quality buyers because someone's going through and actually caring for the neighborhood in this small, 10, 15 minute effort, spending, $20 of weed killer, if it even costs that. Basically it's just, you're seeing a result in making it more rentable, reducing vacancy. You're seeing higher quality buyers and tenants going in, which increases your equity. And again, these higher quality buyers are coming in and they're fixing the properties up more than a lower quality buyer might. It just has high impact, in my opinion. And no, I haven't really heard other investors fixate as much on weed killing as I am. But it's the number one thing I do think I recommend. And it's one of the things my wife and I do when we have a vacant rental property. I do go to that rental property. I do make decisions that not every owner does. So we're often sending you, when your tenant moves out, we're sending you a form, and it typically has 3 tiers, and we're saying, hey, this is something you absolutely positively must consider improving of this property. It's going to protect the property. It's going to be a direct result in higher rent or reduced vacancy. And then you're getting a second tier, which is also fairly highly recommended. And then you're getting a third tier, something that, and I'm the one who actually typically puts this together. And it's stuff that I also feel that cost versus benefit will benefit you in the long run. They just wouldn't be as quick of a return as maybe the 2 other tiers. And often it will say things like, we think you should consider having us get somebody in here to get rid of the weeds. Typically this cost would be under $200. You would do it once or twice a year. We like to do it twice a year. there's certain parameters to when you actually do weed killing. It is important in many ways. So we like to do weed killing in front of the house. We like to do it along the block with neighbors, somewhat acceptance. We don't actually get their permission, but if they're resistive, we certainly don't do it. Never have had any resistance. But also in the back of your house. So nuisance trees are a huge, huge problem, something we face. And anytime a tenant moves out, anytime we're doing a property inspection, we're trying to deal with any nuisance trees. So a nuisance tree starts out as a seed, and it's really nothing. It's plucking it out. We put into a lease that the tenant is responsible for these things, but a lot of tenants just are not going to understand. It just looks like a weed, but it can become a giant, giant tree. And these giant trees become a huge problem, especially in a landlocked backyard. So it's not like you're living in Jersey or somewhere where you have a lawn and a company's pulling up and they're parking on your lawn and they're cutting down the tree and it's basically going to be an $800 expense. No, it's going to be extremely expensive because it's high risk. It's incredibly difficult to kind of cut down, and all this could have been as simply as just plucking a weed out, or in the case of doing proactive weed killing, just spraying a quick little squirt of some weed killer prevents nuisance tree that's just going to, again, we have nuisance trees with some properties that actually the roots are actually growing, including that duplex I was actually talking about that my wife and I owned for years. The roots continued to live. It took us some time to actually kill the trees that we had in the back, the nuisance trees. We had to cut 3 of them out, but the thing kept sprouting in our basement. We kept getting the roots coming up. So the roots just come in and they just go everywhere, and they really rip up everything, and they kind of do significant damage to your property, all of what could have been easily prevented. So again, sending out that form, fill out the form if you're interested in getting weed killing. It's going to ask you how often you want it done. We're going to go ahead and schedule that and get that done for you. We'll send a company out. Utilizing Grow Property Management's buying power, so we typically get reduced costs for something like that. And then, once we get that scheduled, we'll get that done for you.